My name is Florian Fricke, and I'm working at BTU Cottbus Senftenberg in Germany. And in the Smart for All project, I'm chairing the Smart for All mentoring committee, which means that you will get in contact with me after handing in a successful proposal that is selected. And today I would give some information on how to write a coherent CTTE proposal. And as the project and the details of the CTTE call have already been introduced in the previous presentations, I will concentrate mostly on the guidelines about how to write a coherent proposal in the third CTTE open call. I will be using the term coherent and not successful because I think having a proposal that is coherent in excellence, impact, and implementation, we heard this in the last presentation, is the golden rule to have also a successful proposal, and therefore it will be the term I will concentrate on. Let us start with some background information about the presentation. In this presentation, I will explain what kind of ideas we are looking for in the upcoming CTTE call, and I will provide some guidelines for drafting your technology transfer application experiment. On the other hand, the presentation will not cover questions related to administrative issues, questions related to geographic representation of partners, and in general, questions related to what is mentioned in the guide for applicants, some of the things we already heard in the last presentation. And the first thing I would like to do is defining what a PAE actually is. The term PAE stands for Pathfinder Application Experiment. And the target of a funded PAE is to build substrate on to transfer specific technologies from academia to industry, or from industry partner to industry partner, a very specific technology transfer, or also utilizing or having an academic partner to further improve or perform research on a specific technology that has been initially developed by an industrial partner. In general, you can say that the PAE funding can be thought as a pre-seed funding, although it's not necessary to consider it like this. I would like to continue with some golden examples. Let us assume that a university laboratory developed a new technique or a process or a method, but in academia, we have not the knowledge to how to commercialize a specific technology. And most importantly, we normally do not have the facilities and the right people to do that. And on the other hand, a particular technology can be useful for an SME to enhance a specific project or an internal process. And the idea of the CTTEs is exactly this. So it's a collaboration of bringing ideas, new projects, and something to the market. The technology transfer in the course of CTTE projects should always be backed up with a specific business scenario. This eventually means that we need to describe a clear and explicit way in the proposal a particular use case that is driven by the market. For example, what will be the added value for the company and how the added value is justified. In other words, how this PAE can move the company one step forward in its business generation process. And finally, it's very important to note we need an idea that is not trivial. And by the term trivial, we mean that this technology transfer must be related to a new technology or an improvement of a new technology or a customization of a specific technology to a specific application area. As a counterexample, let's consider the following. An SME does not have the budget to pay for a code versioning tool or something else, so the target of the PAE is to build one. This scenario can improve the internal operation of a company, of course, but it does not really provide an added value. So this is not the thing that we have in mind when we are funding projects like this. After providing this counterexample, let me mention some good practices. A technology transfer can lead to a new project or extra features enabled to an existing product. Here I can be a little bit more specific. We can assume that someone developed a technique that can reduce the power of the energy consumption by some percent in a specific device. Then we can see that this power reduction per se is not a scenario that would be acceptable by us. In the competitive proposal, the power reduction must enable new features in the product or reduce the cost of the device. For example, it can be beneficial to reduce the battery size so that the cost or the size can be reduced of a specific handheld device. Apart from the above, a technology transfer can lead to an improved engineering or manufacturing process, or can reduce the operating costs of an engineering or manufacturing process, which would lead in the company to increased margins. After formulating the idea of a PAE, the next step is to build the right consortium. In the CTTE open calls, 3 partners from different countries are required. We heard it in the last presentation. These partners can act as technology producers, technology receivers, and productization partners. Typically, the one partner is the technology producer, and usually this can be research centers or universities. Then technology can be transferred to a technology receiver partner who can, for example, elevate the maturity level of this technology, work with it, create a product, and the technology receiver and the productization partner in cooperation will work together and bring this technology in form of a software or a hardware product into the market. So this is basically the idea of CTTEs and the difference between them and the other projects that we have funded. And in general, we are quite flexible in the formulation of the consortium as long as it's clear in the proposal which partner will turn the result of the PAE into a product. This is a major thing in a CTTE, and so this is very important. Our advice here is to try to be very precise in the proposal. This means it's necessary to write clearly the role of each partner, and usually 1 or 2 concrete sentences are more than enough to do so. You should think that the evaluators cannot guess the different roles of the partners, and you should be precise. So for every partner, there should be 1 or 2 sentences exactly describing their role in the project and what they are supposed to do. Bringing technology in, developing it, bringing it to the market, and so on. This is the reason why we have these 3 different roles in the CTTEs. Now we can go a little bit to the specifics of the proposal forms. If you are experienced in EU-funded projects, you will most probably realize that we follow exactly the same template. But in our case, to make it more compact and easier, only 2 or 3 paragraphs in each category or subcategory are necessary and fully sufficient, which will save a lot of time, of course. And as we can see in the slide, the first main part is a brief description section. The size of this section is roughly 1 paragraph, and this is very important because this is the first part that will be read by the evaluators, and therefore it should clearly transport the idea that you want to provide. In the small section, you must briefly describe the technology that will be transferred, who is the technology producer, who is the technology receiver, and who's the productization partner, and most importantly, why these partners are part of the consortium, or in other words, what are the benefits for all the organizations involved in the consortium. The remaining sections are the excellence section, the impact section, and the implementation sections. Finally, it's very important to mention that the correct way to start a CTTE proposal is either from the excellence section or from the impact section. You can say, in other words, you can start either by having a specific technology and try to understand why an SME or a big company will be interested in this technology. The second option is to identify a technology gap in the market and to find ways to fill this gap. But to recap, excellence or impact should be the main motivation that drives these proposals. Let's here delve into some more details in the excellence section by presenting us two specific scenarios, one from the industry and one from academia. In the scenario from academia, we can assume that the lab is performing research on a specific topic. The main question to be answered here is to which type of companies this kind of technology will be useful and how. So the next step would be to identify these companies and start brainstorming meetings with them to prepare the proposal preparation. In the corresponding scenario from industry, we can assume that an SME has a specific technology that cannot be commercialized by this company. For example, we have a more software-related company that has developed a verification framework to test its software products before releasing them to the customers. This verification framework is not part of the product portfolio of this company, so this framework can be transferred to another company to be used or even to commercialize it. In this scenario, an academic partner could be involved by improving this framework or adapt it to other market segments by adding new features, for example. Again, the highlight of this excellence section is to mention in a precise way why this technology transfer can offer an added value to the productization partner. On this slide, we show the forms of the excellence. Oops. Sorry. On this slide, we show the forms of the excellence section as requested in the proposal. I think we already covered the first two bullets, experiment description, advantages, disadvantages, and so on the last slide, and also the innovation level description, what is the novelty, what is the technology can offer at a product level. The third bullet is called soundness of the approach, and it seems that there is a big confusion about this. So to clarify, briefly speaking, in this subsection, we want to see two main parts. First, how or to which extent the market needs or the industry defines the requirements of the technology that will be transferred. Second, and most importantly, you should present how and where you will demonstrate the end results of the PAE and why this demonstration is fair and objective. Finally, one part that you need also to describe in the excellence section is how the participating organizations will interact to achieve a successful outcome. For example, which tools and platforms will exchange, how these tools and platforms will be integrated, and so on. To continue with the excellence section, this slide depicts a list of indicate KPIs for this section. There are no magic recipes and you don't have to address all, but it's sure that addressing some of them will increase the added value of your proposal. These are new projects or enhanced features to a new product. We had this on the other slides in detail, but it can also be patent applications that we are planning to file during or after the PAE, licenses potential, contributions to standards, maybe open source software that you will release in a product or simply on GitHub or so on for academic partners and also for other partners, scientific publications. And the TRL elevation before and after the PAE are the main KPIs for the excellence section. And now we move to the impact section. The impact section, you should present clearly the resulting added value for the productization partner and his customers. So this is the market relevant part. However, apart from the productization partner, you should also mention the benefits for the other partners. Consider the next bullet, the market opportunity. This is actually where we see usually two general descriptions. As an example, if your PAE is related to adding a new network protocol to an agriculture device, do not analyze the whole agriculture market. Try to be precise and mention what will be the impact of this new addition to the current target market of the company. So always concise and precise and not too general. To continue, the next point about competition, If the particular PAE technology is already included in competitive products, this is not necessarily a stopper, but you should be able to provide a key differentiator, which can be, for example, reduced cost, increased support services, or even the fact that you will rely on open source technologies. The next part is about the commercial strategy and the scalability of the approach. Here, an important part of is to present the short and the long-term projected revenues. Revenues are, as a result of this PAE, do not have to necessarily start just after the end of the project. At the end of the day, we are talking about relatively short projects, but you should be able to make some estimations in revenues, even if particular assumptions must be made. And if so, please write down these assumptions also. The evaluators have the expertise to understand if these assumptions are valid and sensible or not. Finally, we also heard this in the last presentation, the impact of the project on the life of sensitive social groups is an important factor when we evaluate this. Under this bullet, we consider all project results that enhance or support persons that have limited access to public goods or reduce quality of life due to characteristics related to gender, age, ethnic origin, occupation, income, or physical disabilities. And if your project has a positive impact of the life of these groups, this is something that will also be considered positively when evaluating the impact. Again, we have some KPIs for the impact and the metrics that can be used to justify a promising impact session. These are, for example, the number of jobs generated, improved products, or improved processes, potential users and customers. For example, if you extend the customer or user base of your projects, investor pitches, revenue increase of a company, reduced operating costs, maybe the existing new startups that can be funded after or during the PAE or are planned, and also raised money from venture capital. And this brings us to the last section of the proposal forms, which is the implementation section, and in general consists of three main parts. The first part is the work plan, and here the golden rule is the work coherency, with eventually means that every statement mentioned in the excellence part must be justified in the work plan. Of course, you should divide the workload into work packages, tasks, and deliverables, like this is usual in these kind of proposals. But the most important, you should clearly describe the responsibilities of each partner in the consortium. The cooperation part is very important for these kind of PAEs. This assignment and the responsibilities must be fully aligned with the resources subsection, where you need to write down the assigned PMs for each partner, for every work package and task. This will convince the reader that you have a clear plan in mind, and you won't lose 2 or 3 months at the beginning of the proposal to decide who is going to do what. And this is, of course, very important for us. As I said before, the project duration is 9 months. So it's a very important thing that after the official project starts, things get going fast. And yeah, here we are already going to the end of my presentation. Since one of the goals of Smart for All is to support the digital transformation, mainly on European countries in underrepresented in European funding schemes, consortia including at least one member from the SEE countries will be prioritized. And as we already heard in the talk of Antonio and Linda, you can gain extra points for every partner from this specific region and Ukraine. So this is definitely something valuable that you should always consider when you submit a proposal. And this concludes my presentation. I would like to thank you for the attention, and I will of course be happy to answer any open